Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the December 6, 2023 regular session of the Kansas City Board of Public Utilities Board of Directors meeting. We'd like to welcome everybody who is watching online, who are here in the room with us tonight, or listening online as well. Remind everyone that we are taking an audio and a video of this entire meeting. It's being recorded. As always, there'll be a public comment section. If you're in the room, please use the sign-up sheet over at the executive assistance desk. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Each member of the public that's wishing to speak, please provide your name and address. We'd ask that you direct your comments to the board only. You have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. Reminder that all comments made are public. We do caution any visitor not to disclose any confidential account information, nor disclose any account information about an account that is not in your name. Staff will not be able to provide individual account information or history in an open meeting for confidentiality reasons. As always, members of the public may also call or email BPU with questions or concerns. Tonight's agenda and presentations can be found on the BPU website on the board meetings tab. Using Zoom, they'll appear on your screen. I'd like to remind everyone this is a business meeting of the board of directors, and we will conduct the meeting accordingly. Following rules apply to this meeting. Every person in this room will act respectfully toward one another. That includes those who are attending online. Personal attacks and accusations toward any person will not be tolerated. Please state your specific issue to the board only. Attendees will refrain from side discussions or individual commentary that interferes with speakers or other attendees at this meeting. If side discussions are necessary, we would ask that you please take them outside of the boardroom. If any of the rules above are breached during this meeting, the individual is subject to removal from the boardroom or disconnection from the Zoom. I am Rose Mulvaney Henry, member at large, position 3, and I'm the current board president. Other members of our board and staff include Bill Johnson, general manager, David Haley, member at large, position 2, Tom Groneman, 2nd district and current board vice president, Bob Mylan, 1st district and current board secretary, Jeff Bryant, 3rd district, Mary Gonzalez, member at large, position 1, and Angela Lawson, are you our chief counsel? Acting. Still acting chief counsel. Remind everybody, we got microphones around the room. They're very sensitive. They will pick up and record any comments from anywhere in the room. Also remind everyone to put their phones on silent. Before we begin our meeting, I'd ask that you please rise and join me in this reciting of our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I get a roll call, please?
Roll call. Mulvaney Henry.
Here.
Bryant.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Groneman.
Here.
Haley.
Present online.
And they do want to vote. Haley.
They do.
Online. Okay.
Rick, can you?
While I am present.
Okay. Thank you. And Mylan.
I'm present.
Okay. Thank you. And Haley.
David, are you online? We have a quorum.
You have a quorum.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Is this your first time on a Zoom, David?
No, this isn't my first rodeo, but it is going 80 miles an hour down I-70 trying to get there.
Is that a present?
That is a present,
Thank you,
Madam
very much.
Chair. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You have a
All right.
quorum.
Thank you.
Thank
I'd actually moved to amend this evening's agenda to reflect, to essentially delete two items that are currently on the agenda regarding the items for the approval of the minutes for the work session and regular session of November 15th. I'd like to delete those this evening and roll those over to the December 20th meeting, please, in deference to the administrative staff.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Mylan.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. With that, I believe we'll go directly to public comments. Mr. Johnson?
All right, thank you, Madam President. Chris, or anybody? Rick, is there anybody online wishing to speak?
No.
All right, thank you. Thank you both. Next, we're going to the general manager staff report section. First up is Lori Alston. I'll ask her to come up and give us the October 23 financials.
Just gonna. Collapse it. Yeah, collapse that down. Down here. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening. So we'll go over our October 2023 monthly and year-to-date financials. Go to the next page. Okay, take a look at our billed electric usage year-to-date. Overall, our residential sales are down in comparison to 2022. Our commercial is up above 22 levels and our industrial is down. So overall, we're down about 2.1%. Both our residential and commercial the residential is down about 0.5%. Commercial is up about 1%, and our industrial is down about 10%. So I know Jeff, probably a month or so ago, asked about the impact of GM. So this is kind of reflective of GM's usage. We show them in the month of October being about 46% reduced usage. I think that carried over between months or whatever. So, but it does look like in November, they're kind of up to what an average has been. So November looks a little bit better. Closer to their average. Next slide looks at water, CCFs. Both residential and commercial are up above 22 levels, 2022 levels, and industrial is down. So overall, we're up about 2.1%. Residential is up about 3%. Commercial is up 5%, and then our industrial is down about 3%. Looking at revenues just for the month of October, overall, we're down slightly, about almost 2% below 2022. Looking at budget, we are up about 3.7%, almost 4%. The biggest variance there, or difference between budget to actual, is more related to the ERC. We budgeted about 4.1 cents. And on average, we've been about 4.3 cents. So electric is up about 5%, while water was up about 12%. Looking at year to date, both the electric and water and combined, we're up over 2022 levels by 2.5%. We are up about 4.6% above budget. In all categories, each utility is up above budget. Some of the variances there, on the electric side, residential's up about 4 million, commercial's up about 11.5 million. We are showing industrial down about 880,000. We show schools up about 1.1, and then our wholesale sales, which are our market sales, are down about 4.3. On the water side, we're up about 5%, about 960,000 up on the residential, 1 million up on the commercial, about 220 on the industrial. And then our wholesale sales are up about 180,000. So of the graph there, our residential being 35%, commercial being 40%. So about 75% of our revenues there are related to the residential and commercial. Looking at operating expenses for the month, we are down in comparison to last year at this time. From a budget perspective, we're also down about 1%. Electric is down about 2%. Water is up around 7%. Looking at our operating expenses from a year-to-date perspective, we're slightly up in comparison to 2022 by about 0.5%. Overall, in compared to budget, we're up about 2.3%. Electric's up 4%, while water was down 6%. Just kind of looking at our pie chart there, looking at the different expenses, our fuel and purchase power represents about 41% of our expenses. And then both production and T&D, our operations areas, represent about 43% of those expenditures. This slide just takes depreciation out of the mix to look at our true actual operating expenses, down in comparison to 2022 by a little bit under 1%, being up compared to budget about 2.3%. So some of our variances there on the electric side, our purchase power is up about 600,000. Our fuel is our biggest variance there, about below about 7.5 million, while our production is up 3.5 million. T&D is down 2.7 million, and our general administrative is down 1.6. On the water side, production is down about 1.1 million. T&D is down about 450,000, and our G&A is down about 330,000.
So with fuel down that much, we expected an over collection on the ERC.
I'm sorry.
With fuel down that, With fuel down that much, are we expecting an over collection on our ERC?
Well, currently, through the third quarter, we have a under collection of only about 500,000.
I just saw that 7.5 and it made me.
Yeah. So our inventory levels are up. So that's where we haven't burned it yet, but so that projection will go into probably our first quarter ERC, because we've already established our fourth quarter. So.
But we've also parked the train too, so
Yeah.
the inventory levels should stay where they are and start coming back down.
They'll start coming down.
All right.
Because we've already met our quota for
Right. Yep.
2023 on the trains. Yep. Looking at our change in net position for the month, we're at about 3.6 million positive on a combined basis, comparable to 2022 at 3.5 million. In comparison to budget, we're at 3.6 on an actual basis, 2.4 on a budget basis. So both electric and water have positive change in net position. From a year-to-date perspective, we're at a positive 39.3 million on a combined. That's up over 2022 levels, as well as up over budget. Electric shows a positive 29.2 million, and water shows a positive 10 million. This slide just kind of looks at our overall operating and non-operating expenses against revenue. So the 23 line there, revenues represent about 277.3 million, while the operating, non-operating expenses are about 248 million. So that represents kind of represents our net of about positive 29.3 million. On the water side, same reference there. So our our water revenues are about 47 million, and our operating expenses are about 37.6 million. So net difference there is about a 10.1 million. This looks at our average daily collection. So you see in October, we're comparable to where we were in September. It's about 2.1 million per day. Because this is the kind of the end of the summer period. So we started into our winter period here in the next month after that. So from a cash flow perspective, it is looking at August usage, September build, and the cash being brought in on October. Looking at our cash comparison there, so we had a positive about 7.2 million increase in cash. So it represents about almost 22.8 from a year-to-date perspective. So we had a good month in October, selling into the market. So like I said, our third quarter ERC, we had a small under collection. We're collecting on our capacity agreement that we put into place through the summer period. But we do anticipate, November, December starts getting our winter period, and especially between October and November is our kind of our shoulder months of revenue. So our cash position, we're looking at for through the month of October at 107 days of cash. That was at 96 days in September. So we had a very good last several months, positive cash. We do anticipate our expenses to be a little bit higher than our revenues as we kind of go through the winter period. So we're still maintaining around 625,000 daily of expenses when we calculate our rolling 12-month period. And then this is just our historical graph, looking at our days cash. This next slide just looks at our comparison, that our days change in cash going up, as well as our days cash going up. These are just a few of our balance sheet notables. On the fuel inventory, this is where we're seeing our inventory being a little bit higher. So a year ago, we had a value of about 6.8 million. So we're about 9.5 million on our coal inventory. We still have our bond dollars there. We anticipate using those bond dollars for the 2028 and getting it down in through before the end of the year. The 2016C is related to the transformers. So we just got an order in. We're waiting on the invoice, so we can get that in before the end of the year. But our goal is to get that down because we'll be doing some arbitrage calculations on that bond issue, and we want to avoid any positive arbitrage there. Looking at our capital spending, so overall, year to date, we spent almost $36 million out of a budget of almost 61 million capital program. Electric has spent about 21 million, while water spent almost 12 million, and common, which mostly those expenses are IT related, are about 3 million. Some of the major projects there, continuation of those is the Fisher Underground feeders. We had a little bit each month there, so it's about 3 million. And then our annual underground and overhead are just our continuation of projects that come through throughout the year. So 1.6 million, 1.4 million. We're continuing working on our pole inspections and replacement of those, about 1.1 million. The big project with our meter data management upgrade, that's continuing about 520,000 overall. And then on the water side, the system improvement, valves and leaks, about 2.2 million. And then the work they're doing with the 7 million gallon tank replacement is about 5.4 million. Looking at our debt coverage, so the top part being our debt coverage with Pilot, so we're at a combined of 3.05, with electric at 2.96 and water at 2.32. Our debt coverage without Pilot is overall about 2.32. Any questions?
Lori, so if I recollect correctly, the cap projects for 24, about 40 of that was coming from cash.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we feel confident that, we're going into it with 24, close to the end of the year? I know that January brings some contracts, some that'll deplenish that. Do we feel confident that with the rate increase that we'll be capable of hitting our total for 24 and try to get back on track with cap projects? I mean, we've fallen behind on some CapEx over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think, we always kind of are a little cautious going into the first of the year. As far as developing more or getting into more contracts and everything. I don't.
No, I wasn't so much about
Oh.
just the fact that you have the recurring. January
I
always
see.
has
Yeah,
a lot of
that we have to
recurring
pay
costs
for
going out,
annual.
paying for software license
yeah,
and everything at the beginning of the year. That deplenishes your cash.
right.
We have to build it back up enough to be able to support the 40 million projection to get back on track with these cap X projects.
Right. I mean, these past 4 months of building cash, we're in probably better shape than we have been in years past with that. And that's our challenge, is how to prevent those, dropping low and coming back up, having to wait till summer to come back up. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll have a little bit of an impact, but I think, trying to minimize what that impact is. And
Yeah, I
It'll
don't
be
know how you
tough.
change seasonality of the
Yeah.
business, so.
and depends probably on the weather, what winter holds, if it starts, it's cold, but it's not been super cold, so, if it gets really cold, that helps us from a revenue perspective, but
I just know that there's,
it's always.
we've been lean for a couple of years and
Yeah.
it'd be nice to get kind of back on track, water and electric.
Sure.
So.
This is David. I don't know if my mute is on or not. Hello?
We hear
Hello?
you, David. We hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't have the numbers in front of me, but wanted to ask Lori about that 46 or 45% downtime for GM. Is that a direct correlative, perhaps, with them? Or, I mean, I know it's a broad question, but would GM's being down that 46% be possibly the basis for our 2% numbers off for electric?
So that 45% or 46% was just related to the month of October that they were down due to their strike. So
Right.
now that their strike is done and they're back operating, well, and I guess they didn't strike, but because somebody
Right.
else was striking, they were shut down. But I mean, it's looking at the usage. But they're back up and running, and we're seeing that usage pretty well back to where it was prior to the shutdown.
But is that what, and that's why, I mean, I asked about this last month, I think, when they were still down, and you did say you responded to the question that the numbers weren't in yet. And my concern was what too would be beyond my concern for our plant, the GM plant, what would be the residual impact on our bottom line. And I'm just wondering if that's a 2%, if that 2% for that month I mean, the 2% for this one is a correlative to that at all. I mean, how much does their 46% being down impact us in terms of revenue that we anticipated but did not meet?
So I do know their usage was about half of what they normally use. I think I have a sheet over at my chair, about what their bill was. Let me run and let me grab that.
Well, and I know we're not supposed to, specifically discuss any customer, but, just in broad sweeps, in broad terms, I'm just wondering if that one consumer has such an impact that it could reflect by being down half a month or halftime for a month, our bottom line. I mean, that or what exactly that would be. I do understand that. I'm just curious.
So they're with their usage being down, that represented about a $400,000 drop in revenue for us
Okay.
for that month.
But our expenses would have come down.
Yeah,
And our-
yeah, we weren't providing them power,
Right.
or that usage was not there.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Thank you.
The
You want
last
to approve,
part,
motion to approve?
if you can.
Yeah.
Oh, second.
Or
So
was there
second.
first?
Oh, I thought,
No, John.
Bill was
oh,
first.
Asking her
I
if she's
thought
looking
you
for
said
a
that.
motion to approve.
Sorry.
Yes.
This is,
I make a motion to approve the October financials.
this is Jeff. I second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call. Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez, Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Mylan.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is, I'll call Janetta up. So earlier this year, we gave the board, a set of reports where we call them our quarterly customer service reports. The board did indicate that they'd like to see, our customer service report on a more frequent basis, so we are making these quarterly reports. The board also provided input back into those reports saying that they would like to see a couple of things that was not in the earlier version. So we've added that. My hope is that this full set of analytical reports were, or what you're looking for. It was what we had also came up with. That was of an interest to us as well. So Janetta, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, board. And today we're going to go ahead and present our quarterly report that we'll be giving. We've been gathering the information and trying to make sure that we have all the analytics that you're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and let Gabby present. Normally she'll be presenting this and we may have others. However, she is going to present tonight. And I do just want to say that I do want to thank Gabby. She's a great supervisor and her staff, and they manage, as well as our division, all of our customer communications. And so they do a great job of that with the few that they have. So I do want to thank them for the job that they do.
Thank you, Johnetta. Good evening, everybody. So we'll be going over the customer service quarterly report. We'll be discussing accounts, financial assistance, delinquent accounts, call metrics, and survey responses. So the first slide is going to cover paperless billing, net meter, and FlexPay accounts. So you can see the paperless billing has increased, and that's just a direct correlation with the focus of the representatives. When they receive a call from the customer, if they see they're not on paperless billing, they'll offer that program to them. And then our net meter accounts through October have doubled the volume for all of 2021. And our FlexPay accounts just steadily increase each year. So financial assistance, the number of payment arrangements continues to increase over each year. And then we did receive a smaller amount of LEAP assistance in 2022 because other programs were offering assistance like KIRA, KHAP, and EWAP. The next slide is going to deal with delinquent accounts. So it'll include the late fees that we receive each month, the accounts that are assessed a late fee, and then the accounts that are disconnected. So late fees average 250,000 a month. In 2023, the number of accounts assessed late fees is down about 1,400 a month. And then disconnects have decreased in 2023, and that's with a correlation to text messaging. So in November of 22, we started sending text messages to customers regarding their bill. So they'll get reminders regarding the day their bill's due, if the bill's late, if they're eligible for disconnect, and then they also get a text if they are going to be disconnected.
Gabby, can I ask you a question real quick on that? So, and I'm sorry, the print's too small for me and I'm not looking at my computer. So for 2022, or do you have 2022 data up there?
Yes,
Okay,
the
So for-
2022 data is the the light blue.
is the light blue.
Yes.
Okay, so for 2022, how much did we average in late fees per month?
Oh, I didn't get that, but I can,
That's
do-
okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
And then I just wanted to say the November data for 23, that was only for 8 days. It was from 11/1 to 11/10. So you'll see November 2023 is lower, but that's why it wasn't the full month's data. Okay, so then the next slide is going to deal with our call metrics. So you can see our average talk time. So this is the average amount that a representative spends on the phone with each customer is about 5 minutes. Callback in queue was turned off, and then we turned it back on February 1st of 2023. And you can see that that did fluctuate throughout the year. So for example, in March, we implemented an automated operator. So that helped decrease our call volume, but then it spiked in July. We had a couple storms actually in July, I think. And then in September and October, it increased again. We had 3 reps transfer out of our department. So we are working with a limited staff right now. Then the average wait time was high to start in 2023, but it's been staying around 4 minutes.
I
And
was
then-
actually going to make a comment
Oh, go ahead.
on that last one. So what I read from that is basically if the average wait time is around 4 to 5 minutes and the average talk time is 4 to 5 minutes, we have the appropriate number of staff to always have one in queue and one behind. I know that it's going to fluctuate but what I'm seeing on that looks like it's a fairly good number or close to the number that we need from that.
And these are the customers that don't take the advantage of the self-service.
Correct. These are actual, yeah,
All through.
Right, so
Yes.
there's a lot of people getting their answers without us talking to them.
Yeah, I was just looking at the correlation between length of time that they're on the phone and the length of their wait,
Right.
which tells me that I just called in and you just started talking to the person in front of me when you finish and it should
Right.
click through, so.
and
This
then
is
the
David. Oh, sorry.
ahead.
My question is, do you do follow-up, like surveys for if the issue was resolved, or if there are any particular for that 5 or 10 minute, in what percentage was whatever the issue was, what is the resolution? That is a concern. Do we do any, has there been any survey or any attempt to determine the percentage of customers that call in or log in, have their issue resolved satisfactorily?
So we do have a survey, and that's towards the end of the presentation. So I'll go over that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Gabby.
No,
Excuse me.
that's okay. Okay, so the next slide is escalations and customer issues. So escalations are calls that I handle that are transferred to me from the telephone service representatives. And customer issues are calls that are handled by myself also that are passed on through the general manager's office or from the UG. So escalations average around 1 a month, and then issues have been averaging around 2 a month.
Could you give us an example of what the escalation? would-
Yes. So for example, just recently I had a customer that was on FlexPay, and they stated that when they signed up, they were not told that they had to pay it, or that once they got off FlexPay, they would be billed their deposit again if their credit, based off their credit. And so at that time I pulled the call, where he was offered flex pay and that information was given to him, because we actually have a list of items that we read to the customer when they set up flex pay, and that's in there. So I did let him know that that was given to him. He just didn't recall it. And then the next slide is just the resolution for the calls that are escalated or the customer issues received, and they all are resolved. Go ahead.
Yeah, can we go back to that one?
Mhm.
How are we defining resolved?
So basically that we followed the policy and the processes. So we'll go back and make sure that the policy was followed, the process was followed. And if it wasn't, then we will make the issue correct. So if it was followed, we reiterate that to the customer. If it wasn't, then we'll correct it and resolve the issue.
Okay. I know there's at least one that came to multiple board members, but I know I specifically escalated it through Bill. And I believe that there are still out, and I don't know that it's in your guys' shop, but there's still outstanding questions on it. So I would not consider that one resolved.
So these are just specifically the ones that I handle. So if it did go to another department, that's not included on here.
Yeah, this is David. I have 3.
So you would be the only one who so these 11 and the 22 are just Gabby,
Correct.
and there's no other Gabby, right? I
Right,
mean,
so like,
obviously,
say,
because we always
like,
wind up with you.
So I know we had one recently that was a water issue. So that was not one I would have handled. That would have been handled by the water department. So if it just depends on what the issue is, but so this is just specifically the ones I address.
Yeah, but still, I mean, do we not count that as a customer service issue
Well,
of
They're the ones that
sorts?
come to customer service.
Yeah,
anytime that there is something that goes to Chris May or something that goes from Bill that comes to us. These are customer service, whether it's Gabby that is handling it and has a conversation maybe with Doretha, maybe because it's due to a disconnection, but it is the actual issue that comes, and it comes through our department or our division as far as the customer service division.
So when we met about this during the work session several weeks ago, there was a whole conversation around the resolution, okay? And the question was asked, are these the calls, are these the issues that are escalated within the department or around the department? So this is inside customer service, things that the customer service reps does not resolve all the time themselves, gets escalated internally. We need to go back and capture everything that may get routed around customer service. So if I hear from a board member, if I hear from a commissioner, if I hear from somebody else, that would be
The
some type
issues.
of,
Those are the issues,
those are the issues,
escalation of issues.
internal or external.
The internal ones the escalations come from her group,
I know
and
that.
they want to be, and the issues come from you or a board member that goes to Chris that escalates it, or the UG. Those are all of those included in the issues.
All right, so that part I hadn't caught up with. So
That's
the issues are
Mhm.
stuff that are routed around customer service reps, not Gabby, but the things that may come in from the board that Chris may send down to
Customer,
customer service. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I know we had talked about
yes.
creating that, and I didn't know that was.
So then everything should be reflected in these numbers.
Should be. Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm not sure, Gabby, I really can't remember the one I'm thinking of. I feel like you guys were involved on some level. I also know other departments were involved, but ultimately it is a customer service issue. And I'm not saying you guys resolve it, right? And meaning it's in another department's hands at this point, but that has to be reflected in here somewhere.
So, and I agree with you, Rose. So what we're trying to do is build out reports, and you asked me once before, some time back. Customer requests something and it's not part of customer service, it goes somewhere else. Is there a service level agreement that comes with that with an expected time to get resolved? And I said, I'm not sure that we're tracking all that across the entire utility. Now, that's not to say that we can't. Okay, but we're building these reports on the fly to try to cover the entire utility and to provide our executives a look at what we're doing across the utility. You know, this was all based off customer service, not the utility as a whole. So sometimes next year we can come back as we continue to collect data across the utility to say, here is the utility-wide customer service look of how things are working across multiple departments, okay? But this is the customer service division itself, not electric, not water.
And there might be a difference in what the BPU thinks is resolved and what the customer thinks is resolved. We may say that it's resolved, but it might not be, the customer may not think that it's resolved.
Well, and the example I'm thinking of, I mean, there are still internal things that were supposed to be provided back based on questions I had following the resolution and that I haven't heard back from. And that's, been well over a month. So,
So the other thing
and I
to
don't
look at
know
is
how you capture that.
this report is through October. So if you sent something after, it wouldn't be.
It wasn't.
Okay. So if you can send me that again, that you're specifically talking about, we can track it down to make sure it's included in here or not.
I know I've had two that have been resolved that wouldn't be on there because they were later than that report. I think maybe November was one and late October was one. So they weren't captured, but my two got resolved.
Sorry.
My two got resolved, but they wouldn't be captured on this because they were later than
Right. Okay.
September.
And I've got all of your emails from every board member, so I've got a whole history of that. So, but I need to know specifically which issue. Otherwise, I may be looking at the wrong email.
I'm good.
Okay, so this is the survey responses. So you'll see at the top of each graph, it'll say what the question was. At the bottom, it'll have the answers. So most of the calls focused on bill payment, payment arrangements, or others. And these are all selections, I'm sorry, made by the customers. And 70% of the respondents reported under 5 minutes of wait time, and 20% reported 5 to 15 minutes of wait time. The next one was your customer service representative courteous, and did they provide clear direction? Was your representative knowledgeable, and did they address your concern? Over 99% of all surveys said the rep was courteous and provided clear direction. 99% of the respondents stated the rep was knowledgeable and their concern was addressed. So then did the representative, go ahead,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but what, in terms of resolution, I get like rave review. This is David again. I get rave reviews on the interactivity and how well the customer service representative does interact. Let me say that. They are courteous and they're aware, but in terms of resolution, that's my question. I mean, they seem to do an excellent job interacting, but again, back to the resolution of the issue.
So we have a question on there. Was your representative knowledgeable and did they address your concern? So would you like that adjusted?
Well, I mean, what do the percentages say already? What do they say now already?
99% of the respondents stated their rep was knowledgeable and their concern was addressed.
So that's 99% of 25%, because 75% don't respond to the survey.
No. That's out of the total amount of people that we surveyed.
Okay, so it was addressed, but what?
But in the next slide, it says 75%
Right, so that's
don't answer the survey.
That's to leave a personal comment. So we can discuss that when we get to that slide, but that's for them to leave their own comments.
So they may respond, they may answer the question, but they may not have any follow-up comments. So it's that group that.
Do we know
that
what
don't-
percentage of the customers do actually stay on and do the survey?
25%.
No, it's, so at the end of each call, the representative asks them if they want to take the survey and then we transfer them over.
And do we know what percentage say, yeah, they will?
No, we could actually, we could figure that out based on the number of calls we get each month and then compared to the survey. So we
Yeah,
could
just
add that.
Curious on whether it's worthwhile to collect this data. If it's 2%, it's not.
So the survey option went into effect in July.
Yes, and it is ongoing. And then, so yeah, this one, did the representative offer information regarding additional programs and services? And would you like to leave additional comments? So 70% of all surveys said the rep offered information regarding additional programs and services. And then this was the portion where it'll ask at the end of the call, would you like to leave your own comments regarding the call? And 75% of the customers did not leave an additional comment or a personal comment.
I can believe that number.
Do you have any other questions?
I don't. Thank you, Gabby. I appreciate it.
I think that's a really good start on the dashboard, you know, kind of gives a overview of
Yeah,
a quick look at how the customers are using the portals.
right. And I mean, we're starting from not having any type of analytics to building this stuff as fast as we can. And I'm trying to cover stuff across the entire utility, but it takes time to build it out. It takes time to understand where the data is. Takes time to determine what type of reports, how do we want those reports to be reflected? And then, you know, once staff sees it, it puts them in a much better understanding of here's what's going on. And then here are things that we're doing well. Here's things we probably need to take further action on. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing for our executives.
BI is an amazing tool.
Right.
Yeah.
And it'll never stop growing and
Yeah,
it will never hopefully stop.
Yeah, it can become dangerous. It could be a rabbit tunnel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gabby.
Thank you, Gab.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Next on the agenda is resolution 5291. This is directly related to the board rules of procedures. We've gone through the committee with this. We've gone to the work session, and we completed the work session, I believe. And the next step is to bring it before the full board for adoption.
Do any board members have any comments before we entertain a motion for on this resolution? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
This is Jeff. I move to approve resolution number 5291.
It's David, I second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Mylan.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you, board. Really don't have any miscellaneous comments. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam President, for board comments.
Mr. Haley?
Oh, thank you, Madam President, and I'll distribute them now. These are the written comments that were verbal last. I'll just go ahead and, if you will, distribute them. President Mulvaney Henry, BPU board members, General Manager Bill Johnson, BPU staff, our legal counsel, UG residents, and these comments, which I asked to have incorporated into our minutes meetings, only recap observations of purpose and of accomplishments and aspirations that were spoken at our last regular meeting, which was November 1st, Madam President. And they're available between the 1 hour and 11 and 1 hour and 15-minute marks on YouTube. Since any member of the public can have 5 minutes for comment of the public end, I'm going to limit mine right now to only 4. First, this is a great utility. We've been going through this process of our budget, and I'm reminded it's a venerable asset to our municipal government, and I join all of us in the preservation and enhancement of our century-old jewel. And thanks primarily to the patient tutelage of our senior staff, I've learned a lot in my nearly 2 years here. I really have. And the major contribution that we make, this utility, to Southwest Power Pool and our nationally enviable renewable generated portfolio of nearing 50%. And that only a third of the load is residential, those that elect us to be here, while the majority is industrial and commercial, partially due to my question about what happened with GM, which is one of our major industrial loads. Anyway, since here, my advocacies have been to try and tweak a long established and held belief that policies and procedures here are uniform and in the mutual interest of our perception by the public and utility. I'm pleased that we've now improved access and transparency. Indeed, with these audio-visual recordings that are available for the public of all of our board meetings, that the public may participate in our meetings in person and or by phone or even online, though it seems that seldom do they, but they can. Further, we've eased these disconnections of services pursuant to a more compassionate cold weather consideration. I wish I could have asked that earlier during the presentation in terms of what those numbers were for our cold weather disconnects during Lori Austin's presentation. And also my idea for to completely separate the taxes, the UG taxes, the pilot, trash, and stormwater from unified government bills, and requires this utility to collect. It's really caught on, and now the UG Commission is really, the mayor even spoke to it the other day in his state of the government address. And I think we're making some ground that's going to improve our image here. The implementation of the separate billings are going to make the utility, our public image better. Well, finally, instead of reintroducing or pursuing state legislation that simply allows comparison of KCC policies to ours, we have our own policy review committee, met earlier today, I think, and we're able to address it ourselves without relying on what is the norm for the Kansas Corporation Commission. And I'm encouraged by that. We're in a better position and to make ourselves again. And finally, again, the Quindaro and Call plants, our dormant power plants, are, after a long advocacy that I've held and that is being implemented by Mr. Johnson and others, still have some RFPs out, requests for proposals. People are going out looking at these dormant plants, and they're, maybe ultimately will be leased or even purchased, which will supplement our utilities revenues. But as I wrap up these comments and, for the first near midterm of my first midterm, there are some unheard and unanswered pleas that I and citizens who bring me here, that I represent, still feel need to be addressed. And although I did not support the rate increase nor the staff payroll increases that came, I want to say publicly, I'm not going to lobby before this board or any subsequent boards to have those rates reduced. Ship sailed. You got it? It's in place. And this one board member will not be trying to reduce the rate increase that I didn't support, or the staff payroll increases for that matter. However, after some considerations, I do hope we can find in this new existing budget a few things. For one, the board needs to be better compensated. I've said that publicly, and I'll say it again. There hasn't been a 20 years of change. Everybody else gets an annual review and an increase in this very well compensated staff that we have, as well they should. There's been no review or change in 20 years for this board. I think the board pay is inadequate. And I think that if we have an independent commission that evaluates and I predict implements the salary that's more compensable, that we'll have future boards who won't have to sacrifice financially. It'll be a broader base who can come to and serve in this capacity. And further, our new existing revenues should restore that human, interactive, face-to-face lobby customer service immediately. Thank you, Ms. Henson. Thank you, Ms. Freeman, for your presentation and going over the metrics this evening of what customer service is doing. There are still way too many pleas that I hear about. I don't know about anybody else that say that they want to have some human, interactive, face-to-face lobby customer service. And it's across the spectrum. I even spoke yesterday at a meeting with a former longtime board member who approached me and said that that is what we should be doing. And across the board, and who has said she'd come and bring that testimony when it's time to open up the lobby again from the people she hears from. Our security personnel is handling all these knocks at the window for people who don't get satisfaction at the kiosk out here. And they tell me it's dozens of times a day. And we should just be a more interactive for those resolutions that weren't identified in the survey, for them to be resolved. And finally, I think the board should have an opportunity to help through a transparent and accountable ethical considerations taken into account, as legal has suggested they must be, to directly impact the resolution of some of these issues. I mean, if it's a $40 call to get the lights turned back on, but instead of going through the expensive bureaucratic need while somebody's freezer's thawing out, I say, look, go ahead, flip them back on, and we will get it resolved at some point so that they would be. And anyone of the board should be able to do that, to be, again, give more power directly to the people who elect us. So anyway, hope we might consider these and other advocacies to be found within what I consider to be the bloat of an existing budget. And all three of the aforementioned can be accomplished for less than the advertised salary of a new staff position. Everything I've talked about would cost less than the new position that's being advertised for a CAO. I thank you for your patience with me. And again, I'd like to have this a part of the minutes. Thank you, Madam President and board staff.
Thank you, Mr. Haley. Mr. Groneman?
I have no comments.
Mr. Bryant?
Mylan's on. Oh. I believe.
Mr. Mylan, did you have comments this evening?
Yes, I have, very briefly. I'd like to give congratulations and thanks again for outstanding customer service report. And the survey speaks for itself. That's where the rubber meets the road. 99% customer service speaks for itself. Number two, I'm on my way this fantastic security board as a board member for a number of years. And I'd like to say I'd like to have more time to comment on Mr. Haley's report, because I could talk for another 2 hours on his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mylan. It's good to have you back. Mr. Bryant?
Bob, it's good to hear your voice. Janetta and Gabi, thank you for tonight's presentation and the work that you're doing on the policy committee as well. My only other comment would be, when a candidate chooses to run for a seat on the board of the directors of the BPU, they are supplied with a list of the job expectations as well as the level of compensation. By pursuing that seat, it is expected that this compensation is acceptable. After all, we are public servants, not here to profit.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mrs. Gonzalez?
I'd just like to thank everybody that gave us an overlap information on our budget workshop day on Monday, and I appreciate all the detail for that and the length of time you've spent in preparing us for the budget vote next meeting. And thanks to Gabby and Janetta tonight for your presentation, and as always, Lori, thank you for giving us the information on the financials, and that's all I have.
Thank you. I'll reiterate what everyone else said. I know that it's tedious work on the policy committee to go through the customer service policies. You guys are professionals. You're being very patient. I sincerely appreciate your patience. You know, I don't, want this utility to have to go through these another, 25 times. I'm not saying that won't happen, but, we're trying to get it right. And I appreciate y'all's flexibility and your patience just in dealing with me on it. So thank you for that. And thank you very much for the presentation tonight on the metrics. I know we've got a ways to go on those, but and I'm sure that has not been an easy adaptation for you guys, but thank you guys for your patience on that as well. And that's all I have this evening. Angela, I believe we have a motion of some sort.
Yes, did you want a 5-minute break before going into executive session?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. The proposed motion for adoption is as follows. I move that after taking a 5-minute break, the board go into executive session for 20 minutes to discuss confidential matters related to employment of the general manager, a personal matter of non-elected personnel as justified under the exception in the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and the general manager, William Johnson, and acting chief counsel, Angela Lawson, be present to participate in the discussion. All others to be dismissed from the room, and electronic and telephonic transmissions to cease, and that we reconvene in open session, returning to both electronic and telephonic broadcasting at,
7:30.
I'm sorry,
7:30.
7:30, to
Read
either
up.
take action in an open session or to adjourn.
This is Jeff. Moved. Make that motion.
David, I second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman,
Aye.
Haley,
Aye.
Mylan.
Aye.
That motion carries.
I don't support that. Does Bob in here?
How's the birthday celebration?
Really did. I can't believe it.
Way to go, Senator.
I think I'm rushing too much when you.
Things fall through the cracks.
Hate makes way.
No, I don't. Okay. David, please. Well, I'll make copies.
Man, I can't believe that. But I guess I don't want to look completely oxymoronic. I did just want the new policy, which included that. Part of the policy.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yes.
Come back into
Executive session.
executive session in 5 minutes.
Right.
About 7:30.
Right, 20 minutes after the
Yeah,
5
yeah,
minutes.
yes.
Unless we extend,
I'm gonna go ahead and share a notice on that and then.
unless we go ahead and extend the executive session for another 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Yeah, been through. I'll be here until 10 tonight. All that else, none of them were there. Oh, yeah. The only one was. No, no.
This is Jeff. I move to extend executive session for 5 minutes.
Gave me his proxy.
Second, roll call, please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez, Groneman,
Aye.
Haley.
No.
That motion carries.
Are we back on?
We're back.
We are.
This is Jeff. I move to adjourn.
It's Rose, I second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez, Groneman,
No.
Haley.
To adjourn.
The motion to adjourn.
Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you.
That's all. Does she vote?
Zero eight.